Bruce Miller, if you'll go ahead and reintroduce yourself. We've got a little time clock going on you, but we're going to give you what we promised, so go right ahead.
You're timing me to the split second. Thanks for giving us this opportunity. My name is Bruce Miller. I'm a retired physics professor from TCU. And after SB4, I'm sure some of you know what that was, I started getting involved in city government, what's going on. And tonight I'm going to be talking to you about independent redistricting. We have a presentation for you. Okay, so let's take a look at this map. You can see the two places a little clearer over there. But this is a map of the city, and that shows each of its districts. And of course, going along with each district are the council members. It's blurry over here, I can't control that, but each color corresponds to a different district. So number 5 on the right is Independent. Number 4 is Kelly Gray. Number 4 is Carrie Moon. Below that is Carrie Gray. Number 3 is Brian Bird. And the one up on top is Shingleton. Number 9 is Ann Zeta. And then the one, the lower one is Florida.
Just 1 second. If you can't see clearly, this presentation here is crystal clear. There are plenty of seats down here if you want to shift that way so you can definitely hear and see and understand what he's talking about. Plenty of seats down here to your right.
Yeah. Okay, is that working better? Okay, and also you can see the map right on those blue handouts that we gave out before. You can just look at like that. So the main thing we want to say about this map is if you were going to divide Fort Worth up into 8 districts, you think you would pick districts that look like this? Okay, don't they look rather absurd? You can see, for example, that District 7, it's broken up into different pieces. Carrie Moon's district is shaped like an L, and so forth and so on. Many of them are just highly distorted. So the question is, how did they get that way, and should they look like that? I'll just say one thing right away is that right now, the way our city government works, it's the city council that determines the shape of those districts. And I'll just mention one word, and that's gerrymandering. I think you're all familiar with that. Okay, now let's just look over here. You don't have these on your handout. I'm going to look at the clearer ones. On the left, we're showing you the distribution of white folks in Fort Worth. Now, dark means more people, white means less people. So that might seem a little confusing at first. On the right-hand one, you can see the distribution of African Americans. And so, of course, you can see that Gina Bivens and Kelly Gray are in districts with substantial numbers of African Americans. But also, Bird has some, and you can see that, for example, Jordan, it has a much stronger, has more population of white folks, and Bird. Here, we also can show you the Hispanic districts, and you can see District 2 has a heavy Hispanic representation, and that's Carlos Flores district. Okay?
I have a question. Could you go back and show the one where youngest Jordan's population is and Como is?
Could we come back to that?
3 and 6?
Yeah. We come back to ask the question.
Yeah, well, the question would be, so how would we get a district drawn so that you could maximize the population? Over here where 3 and 6 are, we don't have a black representative on the council. But if you manage to combine those 2 population groups into one district, could that be achieved?
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. How citizens redistricting work.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's right. Okay, so you're all familiar with the Race and Culture Task Force that the mayor created to study the lack of diversity in Fort Worth. and the problems associated with that after some of the major police problems that we've had. And so the Race and Culture Task Force made 22 recommendations. One of them, of course, was to the Police Review Council, but they also studied governance, and they noted that there was an inequitable voter representation on the city council. For example, Fort Worth is 35% or so Hispanic, but there is only one Hispanic representative on the city council, just to give you an idea. They noted that there's a lack of diversity on city boards and commissions, and that there's low voter participation in minority areas. So what did the Race and Culture Task Force do? They noted that right now, the census is coming out, and Fort Worth has elected to go from 8 to 10 council members because of the expansion of the city. So we're going to have to create 10 new districts. Now, the Race and Culture wants to promote diversity and inclusion. So they recommended creating a committee to study forming an independent redistricting commission consisting of citizens. So what that means is instead of elected officials deciding where those boundaries are to make sure they get reelected, an independent commission would make sure that we had racial diversity and inclusion in the representation of the city. And that's the point. Right now, Austin is a city that already has that in Texas, or a few other cities in the country that have that. Well, the task force created a detailed plan, a month-by-month plan for the steps necessary to form such a commission. And the city council members pushed back. So if you look at the top of our slide, the city council missed every milestone of the task force recommendations. The first thing the task force did was say the city should create a committee to study it. The city did create a committee, and that committee never met. So,
They don't want
not a good situation. So that's where we come in. A group of us, including Charles Boswell, who was on the task force and was in charge of governance there, he's a former Fort Worth city manager, got together and we thought that we need to educate people about this and push back and try to get it reconsidered. So what an IRC, an Independent Redistricting Commission of Citizens, will help promote the future health of the city, because instead of having politicians fighting over where all the boundary goes every 10 years when the census comes up, we will have a group of people encouraging engagement of citizens in the life of the city and ensuring that we would have diversity. So we are working to make Fort Worth an IRC, a permanent feature of the city charter. We want the city charter to change so that every 10 years the city forms a new, the commission reforms and sets a new set of boundaries that respects the life of everybody in the city. So there's two ways to accomplish this. One way is for the city council to put a charter amendment on the ballot, and another way is to have a petition drive to force the issue. So right now, I mean, the council could decide to put it on the ballot, but if they didn't, if we had enough signatures, we could do that. So now we're meeting with community groups and with city leaders. We've met with 2 of the council members. We've met with Christina Brooks, who came here to see you. She's the new diversity officer that the city of Fort Worth hired. And we're going to meet with Dana Berghoff next week, who was in charge. She works for the city, and she was in charge of the previous redistricting effort. So let's just talk for a second of how a redistricting commission works. How would you form that? And the one in Austin, they have the city the auditor forms a group with 3 auditors called a review panel, and they solicit applications from all the members of the city to serve on the redistricting commission. They have a lengthy application form, and what they did was they took the top 60 people, the most qualified 60 people, to form a basis from which to choose the commission. From that group of 60, they picked 8 people at random. They didn't go and ask the council members, who should we have? They picked 8 people at random, just like a bingo game. And those 8 people then got together, they took the list, and they picked 6 more to give them a total of 14 that were most representative of the population of the city of Boston. Okay, so that's how they formed their commission, and then that commission went out and met with groups all over the city and figured out which groups had common interests, characteristics that unified them, and they divided Austin up into 10 districts. Austin has 10 council members like we will, and that was it. The council had nothing more to say. That established the districts from which people could run for council in the city of Austin. Now that happened here. 10 years ago, there was a system of open meetings where people could actually submit plans and maps. But of course, it was the council that had the final say-so. There was no independent commission. But here, we're just giving you an idea, if you can see. These are some of the maps that were submitted to the city for consideration in the previous go-round. Okay, if you look at them, you'll see that some of them have little patches that are different than the others. What we're trying to do is get people to get involved, so you can go ahead and make maps like this and tell the city what you want. And we're hoping that then we will have an independent redistricting commission that will take all those things into consideration to form a district. So first of all, here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to get involved, ask your city council member to put an IRC amendment on the ballot, write a letter to your city council member, meet with them, draw your community of interest, and there's a website there that'll help you do it. Go to public hearings on redistricting. The city council has their work sessions where they discuss, where they will be discussing redistricting. You could go meet with Christina Brooks. Her job is to promote the race and culture recommendations to the city. And you could also create your own map. Create your own map and submit that as well. So we'll help you with all of that. Our group would be glad to help you. So there's our website, and we also have a Facebook page called Citizens for Independent Redistricting. It's on the handouts and the little cards. So I hope I spoke clearly, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Miller? Mr. Vernon?
I can't remember that any frequency what I should look like. However, in just going over this just now and reviewing what we learned last year, the district that Junkus Jordan represents is a majority people of color district. If Como was drawn into a district that is predominantly Wedgwood,
Como could control who the city council member is, and it could be a third African American on the city council. The whole reason I'm making this statement is this is incredibly important to the Como community for the future, the next decade. You may be real happy right now with this wonderful Taj Mahal facility, but let's be thinking about the next decade, not what you worked for the last 10 years.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, right quickly? We got about 3 minutes. Well, just a moment, if you'll let me recognize that she had her hand up first, or any? Gotcha.
How do you, if you wanted to provide contact information for signing up or getting involved, how do you do that?
We'll have a, I'll put something on a table right after the, right after the meeting.
And I think we have some cards left over from last meeting.
Yeah, we,
Eva, are you back there? Would you hold up those cards with information on it? But also, Mr. Miller will be around after to answer questions.
absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great, great